All right, we are in our final unit, Unit 4, which is going to be our usability testing and web redesign proposal unit. So this unit is multifaceted, and by that I mean we're going to have 3 parts of this unit. I'll get into that in a little bit more. We will be slowly doing our peer review the way that we did with the application packet. So for each part, we'll kind of do a peer review at different weeks so you can slowly work and revise and you're not scrambling to do the entire assignment the very final week of class when you're doing all your other finals. Now remember, because they will be your rough drafts, they don't have to be completely polished yet. They need to be as complete as possible, just so you can get more substantial feedback from peers, but they are rough drafts. The final will be due, the entire packet, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3, on December 13th at 5 p.m. So I tried to give you as much time as I possibly could. You are welcome to work in groups for this assignment. If you are going to work in groups, you need to get that figured out ASAP. So within this week, you need to kind of get together. Your groups can be as many as 4 people. So if you happen to know someone that's in our online class, if you want to reach out to one another so you can kind of work in groups instead of just a single person doing it, you can work with 2, you can work with 3, or you can work with 4. Just be sure you let me know because I will have to kind of put you in groups on Canvas to make sure you're graded that way. So be sure to let me know if you do want to work in groups. I'll send out a reminder message when I feel like everyone's probably been able to view the lecture. But let's go on and talk about what we will be doing in groups or individually. So here's the kind of setup for the whole thing. You work for a company that specializes in website usability, and your boss has tasked you with finding a local website that is flawed so your company can gain a new client. Boss doesn't care what kind of company or organization it is. He just wants you to find a website that needs some serious work to make the site user-centered to pin down a new contract. So your company is dedicated to user-centered design, and so after you found this really flawed website and sent the prospective clients a redesign and usability proposal, you're going to do an actual usability test to find the biggest flaws and make changes based on the user needs. The testing both provides more information for your company as they redesign the site, and it also provides the potential client with evidence of the current website's flaws. Most importantly, it uses real users' responses to websites to figure out what is working and what is not. So in a nutshell, the task is a 3-part assignment in which you're going to, 1, propose a usability test to redesign a flawed website to your client, who would be the website owner. 2, to write a protocol memo and test the website usability. And 3, create a lab report in which you describe your suggestions for website changes to the potential client. So keys to this. You want to get a local website, a small-scale website, and keep in mind the entire time you are writing all of these proposals to that website owner. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So what is a usability test? That's key to this. So the usability test in this is kind of going on in the background, right? That's something that you have to do in order to write the final proposal because you're going to let the clients know what happened. We're going to be using Steve Krug's Rocket Surgery Made Easy. You can see right here, I've taken a quote from this book. This is a critical book. It's the only text I'm asking you to purchase this semester. It's not an expensive text. You may be able to get digital copies if you just look this up. You are welcome to share them, but you really need this text. You're actually going to take sample scripts and things from it and use it in your actual proposal. So it's an important text. It's super helpful and very easy to read. So Steve Krug says, watching people try to use what you're creating, designing, building, or something you've already created, designed, or built, with the intention of A, making it easier for people to use, or B, proving that it is easy to use. So this is how Krug kind of defines a usability test. It's easy, right? We've already kind of done a usability test in our instruction set when you watch someone. We're going to be a little bit more strategic and scientific and actually get a lot more information this time than we did, but I had you do that observation during the instruction set to get you ready for this. So in this assignment, you will find a poorly designed website. You will run this usability test that I just explained for its intended users and purposes. You will run a usability test with one user, and you will create a lab report proposing suggestions to improvement. So your key main deliverables are the website redesign proposal and usability proposal, the usability protocol memo, and then the final lab report. You won't do the usability test until you're kind of working on that second usability protocol memo. And you will use the information in the protocol memo in your actual usability test. All this will make sense as I keep talking. So let's look at assignment 4.1. This is the first one that you're going to do. The rough draft will be due on November 15th. Your peer responses will be due on November 18th. And remember, the final is not due until December 13th, but we're going to do these in small chunks to make everything more manageable. So let's look at the description for the first thing you'll be focusing on. So this is the first part of the 3-part assignment in which you will propose a usability test to redesign a website to your specific client. Remember, you're not writing to your boss, you're writing to the owner of the website. In this stage, you're going to create a proposal document for your client. This document must do the following. So to begin with, you're going to choose that small scale website, preferably from a local business or academic department that you think has several flaw designs, which you can improve upon. So looking at any of our OU sites is a fast go-to. A lot of our sites have to be put up quickly, and the people doing it, no one's being paid to do academic or the university websites. It's generally someone from the department. So those are easy ones to find. Any local Norman business, you'll find lots of kind of shaky websites for local businesses. So take a look around and look for these small websites. The smaller ones are just going to have a lot more for you to discuss, and it's going to be basically low-hanging fruit. They're easy to find the flaws in because it's not, they haven't paid a lot of money, or they have a novice putting these together. All right, so that's going to be step one, and we'll do that as a kind of a small homework assignment, but that is what you'll need to start out the entire thing. So once you find that crappy website, what you're going to do in this actual deliverable in the proposal, first you're going to define the users and purposes. So in the first section, which will serve more or less as your introduction for this proposal, you're going to identify what the primary goals of the website are and who you think the target audience is for the site by writing a user persona. Again, we've already done this user persona. You'll do the same thing you did for your instruction set. You can use the same exact format that you used for it, or a template that you found online, but you'll do that same thing. You'll create that user persona, but then you'll also write it in kind of an introduction form to where you connect the primary goals of the website with what the target audience needs or wants. This is all about usability, right? So we're constantly thinking about the user. What does the user need? What does the user want? What does this website need to do to be an effective website for what the users need? Specifically, you must identify 3 main purposes of the website, 2 of which you're going to test, and you must write a user persona for a typical website. So a couple of tips that I pulled from the comments I've made in past semesters, some students that do these. As you discuss users and purposes, consider the user and site organization as you describe these. So, or the site or organization. So basically, when you're discussing kind of users and purposes, really think about the combination of the two. So if it's a clothing store in Norman, you can think about the users, but think about like what the users need from the site. So think about how all these work together so you can really think about how to make the site the most user-centered and effective site you can. Also, be sure that the target user is clearly defined, right? Just like I pushed in the instruction set, I want to have a clear target audience because we need a clear target audience if we're going to really make the site user-centered. So let's look at the introduction. Which will be kind of your site description. This is an example introduction from a previous student's work. And so you'll see that it says blushnorman.com is the online shop for a physical store located in Norman, Oklahoma. This page has three main purposes, which are to sell blushes, I think I said brush, but that's fine. Blushes, clothing, and products, increase business in the physical store location by increasing interest through the online site, and create customer loyalty online sales by creating a website design that is user-friendly. The website sells University of Oklahoma t-shirts and hats, Oklahoma City Thunder t-shirts, whitening toothpaste, and custom t-shirts. Toothpaste is really random. This site's main goal is to sell merchandise to make money. However, it could be doing that much more effectively than it is now. So this is written to Blush, right? To the actual company, to the owner of this website. The reason that it's laying this out is to let the client know, hey, I know what your store is trying to do. I can pinpoint the purpose of your website. So you're letting them know like that you understand the main purposes. Then they go into a kind of description. With the typical user being a female college student, it is important that the store's website reflect that in order to attract new customers and to retain previous customers. The site should be user-friendly and it should be customized to appeal directly to the target customer. This can be as easy as making it easily navigable and aesthetically pleasing with no unnecessary distractions floating around the page. So they kind of quickly describe the kind of persona or target audience, which this group also had that fleshed out persona like we did for Unit 2. And it quickly says like how quick changes could be made to just make this better accommodate the imagined user. So that's a sample introduction. It's not 100% perfect. This is just how one student has approached it. There are more examples online that do this a little bit differently, so you can get a feel for how different students have approached this in the past. But just notice it's specifically calling out the users and the purposes, and it's starting to create those persuasive elements about why this website needs to be changed, right? So you're selling them already on both the usability test and the redesign. All right, so the second part is going to be flaws. So you're going to do a flaws analysis on the website. You must analyze 3 pages, the home page, and then 2 secondary pages. 3 pages total, the home page and 2 secondary. To analyze the flaws, you need to do this visually using screen captures and labels. So this is going to kind of draw on what you, some of the skills that you used in Unit 3 when you use the screen captures and labels. Remember to use labels on every image that you have and refer to them. Furthermore, you need to describe these flaws in terms of your target users and their goals on the website. So remember, you need to be sure that you are always referring back to the user when you do this, because this is usability and it's about not user friendliness like that last introduction said, but user centeredness, to where the user is the center of everything. So the discussions always need to be kind of coming back to how the user's needs aren't being met. Whenever you're talking about flaws, it's not just flaws in general, but you bring it back to the user. That's the separation between a C/B assignment and an A assignment, is the way that it can discuss these and bring it back to the users as well. So some tips for the flaws analysis section is be sure to use clear images. Be sure to label and caption all images and refer to them in the body text. For example, the page includes large blocks of text that make needed information difficult to find, as shown in Figure 3. So remember to label them Figure 3 with a caption to explain what that figure is, and then refer to those figures whenever you're writing out the actual analysis. And don't forget the audience, or in this case, don't forget the user, right? Don't forget to bring everything back to the user. So part 3 of this first assignment is you're going to do a competitors analysis. So basically, you're going to find another website that is of the same kind, purpose, and or business as the website you're redesigning, and you're going to describe how it works better or solves some of the chosen problems you just described in the flaws analysis. So if you're doing the University of Oklahoma chemical engineering website, you go to, say, Oklahoma State's and look at how Oklahoma State's engineering website is doing a better job. Or if you're doing a clothing store in Norman, Oklahoma, you look at another clothing store in Norman that has a more effective website, or maybe even a larger clothing store, right, that's doing something more effective, or just a clothing store of the same size in a different area. In a nutshell, though, you just need to find an analysis, a website that's doing kind of the same thing and has a similar audience, but it's doing it much better to show how a website can be more effective. And then the fourth part of this is the proposal part. So you're going to conclude by proposing a usability test to your client, which remember is the website owner. You will, in this proposal section, talk about which 2 tasks or flaws you're specifically going to run the test for and why. Remember to keep this user-centered. Think about profitability of the company as well. So you're juggling these 2 things, what the user needs and how that can kind of come back in terms of profitability for the actual company. Or if it's, the college, how can it make them, how can it draw more students? How can it bring more income to the college? Whatever it is, you think about it in terms of both the users and their needs and also how it's going to benefit that organization or company. So in this section, you also need to do a little bit of convincing on why a usability test will be beneficial to your client. So usability tests cost money and they take time. So you're going to use persuasive elements as well, right? You're not just going to say you should do this. And this is where talking about the financial benefits or just the benefits to the organization will be a good place to include that persuasion. You need to describe a little bit more general information to the type of usability test you'll perform. In this section, you're going to be referencing Krug. And then here is just kind of a checklist of things you need to make sure you have in 4.1 to make sure you're hitting all the bases. So it needs to be written to your client. This needs to all be in memo form because you're writing it to a client. So be sure that the name and contact information of yourself and the client are included. Think of including client theme colors, logos, etc. that will appeal more to the client and demonstrate that you get their aesthetic. You need to have a formal cover page and a table of contents, which we've had for other assignments. Don't assume that your client knows this assignment or their requirements. Remember, put yourself in this situation as if you are working for a company that does usability testing and you're proposing to a client, to a small clothing store in Norman. You need to write it with that in mind. Be sure that the intro provides a summary of who your client is as a brand and what the goal of their website might be. Make sure your critiques are geared towards that brand identity. So this just demonstrates to the client you know who they are and you know what they're trying to achieve. Critique, but do not insult. This is like commonly done actually. Don't insult the website. Don't call it dumb. don't start to just like rip it apart. You need to be strategic in your critiques, because remember, you're writing to the owner of that website who okayed the website, who might think the website is great, who may have done the website themselves. So be sure you balance that critiquing without insulting. You need to build this like everything else for scannability, but depth. So not everything needs to be in paragraphs, but not everything is in bullets. Strategically choose when bullets might better catch their attention to be, this is a flaw, this is a flaw, this is a flaw, but then you go into more depth. And then your client has no idea what a usability test is, nor do they know about good web design. So your goal is to teach them in the way that you word things, that you present things. You're going to be using the readings for this a lot. And you're going to be referring to and weaving those in to really articulate both what a usability test is, why they're important, and also what makes good web design. So, don't just make up info, cite best practices and examples from our readings, and each problem should show a possible solution from the competitor. Use a template or mimic one. So hop online and go look at memo templates. Use those templates for your personas. There is no such thing as plagiarizing in this. What's been done has been effective, so go ahead and use it and don't rack your brain on this part. And then images are incredibly important, so label them, use arrows pointing to the attributes that you're discussing, to the flaws or to the places that are correcting the flaws. Provide a caption and refer to the figures in your body text, as I've already said. So here's some troubleshooting. First of all, read over the assignment sheet. Read it word for word and know that there is a rubric at the end of the assignment sheets. Every assignment sheet that I have used this semester has a rubric at the end of it. That is the same exact rubric that I use to grade. I do not deviate from them. So be sure that you read the assignment sheet closely and ask me any questions if you have any. Post them to the discussion board. If they come late, sometimes those kind of like the unit discussion boards after week 2 will slip to the background. So email them to me, come into my office, and be sure to look over the rubric too. You'll see exactly how I'm grading and where your points are coming from. So common errors in the intro is the intro does not thoroughly address each component required in depth. Remember, you need to explain both the website and the audience or the user. So audience client isn't clearly defined. Remember, you're crafting the document to speak to a specific client. So think about that. Think about what the organization is. You're probably going to speak differently if you're writing to, a university than you are to a motorcycle shop. They're both going to be formal in tone, but you think about your actual client, the audience that you're addressing. Another big one that I've mentioned and I will keep mentioning is the user isn't kept in mind during all the analyses. And remember, the user is different from the client. And when you're doing all the analyses, you're talking about flaws or using the competitor analysis to say like how they solve problems, it's all got to come back to the user. And then to make that even better, you connect it to how being user-centered is going to be profitable or beneficial to the organization or company. The analyses don't include enough detail, so be sure that you're giving detail. Don't just say, see the page is cluttered. Like, explain why that's a problem. Explain what problem that's creating. Explain what that's doing for the user and the effect it's having on the company. Give detail. Images aren't labeled or utilized. Remember to do all those things. They're clear. They have labels. They have captions, and they're referred to in text. Or the proposal doesn't persuade the client to do a usability test. Now remember, persuasion is always part of proposals, especially when you're trying to get somebody to pay for something. So remember to be persuasive as well. And here's a quick example of what I mean by really utilizing images. Notice that this doesn't just like throw an image up there. It actually uses red boxes, and it uses text and arrows to show exactly what it's talking about. So be sure that you do that as well, that you utilize, and that it looks professional, right? That it doesn't look like my 9-year-old son kind of created it somewhere, but that a professional did. did. So really utilize those images as you're going through, because that's really what's going to show, especially if you think of a client that doesn't know a lot about web design. That's how you're going to show them what you're talking about, or through those images. So that is the first assignment. And if you have any questions at all, let me know. Step 1 is finding that crappy website and posting it so we can see the crappy website, and then you'll get going. Remember, if you want to work in groups, you are welcome to, but you need to email me so I can set you up on groups in Canvas. And that is that. And remember to get Steve Krug's Rocket Surgery Made Easy. And you'll be hearing my voice whenever it's time for the next lecture.